Okay, let's unpack this. When you hear Henry Ford, what immediately springs to mind for you? Is it the Model T, maybe? The iconic assembly line? Or perhaps that revolutionary $5 day? You might think you know the story, but the sources we're diving into today, specifically excerpts from Ford's own words in My Life and Work, reveal a mind far more complex, visionary, and, well, at times, deeply contradictory than you might expect.
Absolutely. And My Life and Work, it's not just an autobiography, it's practically a manifesto, isn't it? Covering everything from the nuts and bolts of manufacturing right through to his deeply held beliefs on morality and society.
Right.
So our mission today is really to cut through that familiar narrative, extract the core nuggets of his philosophy, uncover some truly surprising facts behind his industrial empire, and frankly, grapple with some of the more challenging aspects of his worldview.
Yeah, the tough stuff too.
Definitely. Prepare for some genuine aha moments, because Ford's approach often defied the conventional wisdom of his time, and I think many of his ideas still resonate or provoke today.
So, this deep dive is for you, the learner, who wants to move beyond the headlines and get to the true essence of what drove one of history's most influential industrialists. We're going to explore what he believed, why he believed it, and how it shaped not just his company, but really an entire era. It fundamentally changed how we work, live, even think about progress. So what does all of this mean for us today, looking back, a century later? From the very first pages of My Life and Work, Ford lays out a foundational idea that might really surprise you, especially given his reputation as, well, a titan of industry. He states unequivocally that power, machinery, money, goods, they're merely means to an end. The end being to set us free to live. He even described his machines, the heart of his empire, as concrete evidence of the working out of a theory of business which looks toward making this world a better place in which to live. That's a powerful statement, isn't it? From a man often remembered for efficiency above all else.
It really is. And what's truly fascinating here is his unwavering belief that genuine service inherently leads to profit. Not the other way around. This wasn't just some feel-good slogan for him. He genuinely felt the prevailing industrial system of his day was fundamentally flawed, encouraging waste, hindering true service.
How so?
Well, he makes a very pointed statement. He says, if I merely want money, the present system is all right. It gives money and plenty to me. But I am thinking of service. He saw profit as a result, you see, a result of providing value, not the primary goal.
And it wasn't just abstract talk, right? We see that philosophy crystal clear in his approach to pricing. Instead of trying to maximize profit per car, he actively sought to, and I quote, force the price of the car down as fast as production would permit and give the benefits to users and laborers, with resulting surprisingly enormous benefits to ourselves. He even recounts that remarkable year where profits were so high, they voluntarily returned $50 to each car purchaser, feeling they had unwittingly overcharged. That's almost unthinkable today. Was this like a one-off gesture or really part of his model?
Oh, it was absolutely a cornerstone of his strategy.
Yeah.
It wasn't charity, not in his mind. It was brilliant long-term business thinking. Ford saw price reduction as the key to expanding his market exponentially, making the car accessible to the masses.
Which then drove up production.
Precisely, which increased production, created more jobs, and ultimately grew the business far more sustainably than just maximizing short-term profit ever could. He understood that a smaller profit margin on a vastly larger number of sales would lead to greater overall success. He called it a firm policy of steady price reduction.
A firm policy. That's a stark contrast to today, often.
It is. It really forces us to ask, what would our economy look like if more companies embrace that kind of long-term vision of service and accessibility?
That's a great question. And it kind of ties into his perspective on innovation, too, doesn't it? I mean, obviously an innovator, but he wasn't one to rush things. He had strong feelings about testing new ideas, rigorous testing. He famously said, skepticism, if by that we mean cautiousness, is the balance wheel of civilization. He worked for 12 years, apparently, before the Model T was suited to him, and then it has not been essentially changed since. It's all about perfecting the product, ensuring it's absolutely reliable before you unleash it.
Exactly. And that cautious approach, it connects to his broader, I think, very insightful view on progress and reform. He made this critical distinction between reformers, who he felt just smash things, advocating for radical change without understanding the mechanics.
Right, just breaking stuff.
Yeah. And those who intelligently improve. He criticized both extremes. The radicals wanting to wipe out the old order. He mentions groups like the Soviets. And equally, The reactionaries just blindly clinging to the past. His point was that both get away from the realities, failing to truly see and understand what's actually happening.
So for him, it was about evolution.
Yes, evolution. Intelligent, step-by-step improvement. Rather than wholesale destruction or just stubborn stagnation, it's a philosophy of continuous refinement, not revolution for its own sake.
Okay, so we've explored this big picture philosophy, service over profit, progress through intelligent evolution. But where did these ideas really take root and change the world? It seems they were deeply ingrained right there on the factory floor in his practical, often radical approach to labor. He believed, quite simply, since we must work, it is better to work intelligently and forehandedly.
Indeed. And this wasn't just a slogan for a poster. He literally took the work to the men. Not the other way around. That's the essence of the assembly line, isn't it? Pioneered in April 1913, initially for something quite specific, the flywheel magneto.
Right, small part first.
Exactly. But it completely transformed production. We're talking reducing assembly time for that magneto from 20 minutes down to just 5, and for the entire chassis, from over 12 hours to a staggering 1 hour and 33 minutes.
Incredible numbers.
They really are. And his guiding principles were so simple yet revolutionary. No man need ever stoop over. A man shall never have to take more than one step, and parts travel the least possible distance. A meticulous dance of efficiency, eliminating every wasted motion.
One of the most eye-opening things for me was Ford's radical approach to who could actually do the work. His belief that developed industry can provide wage work for a higher average of standard men than are ordinarily included in any normal community. He actually classified, nearly 8,000 jobs?
7,882, yes.
And found that 3,595 jobs were disclosed as requiring no physical exertion and could be performed by the slightest, weakest sort of men. He even identified jobs for legless men, one-legged men, blind men, even experimented with bedridden men screwing nuts. What was behind this? Was it purely benevolence?
That's an excellent question, and it gets right to the heart of Ford's complexity. While there was an element of what he called decency, it wasn't simply charity, not primarily. This was a profound, really radical redefinition of ability in the workplace, driven by an economic reality he saw.
Which was?
He said, "It is economically most wasteful to accept crippled men as charges and then to teach them trivial tasks like the weaving of baskets. A waste of human potential," he thought. Instead, he sought to make them productive tar with able-bodied men, earning a full man's wage. His process optimization, breaking complex tasks into simple motions, didn't just speed things up. It fundamentally broadened who could contribute.
So the system adapted to the people, not just the other way around.
Exactly. Industry should adapt to human ability. It was remarkably ahead of its time. We're frankly still striving to fully achieve that level of inclusion today. It really challenges our assumptions about productivity and who we deem employable.
It really does, and that extended right into wages, didn't it? 1914, the big one, implementing a minimum wage of $5 a day and an 8-hour workday, voluntarily. He called it social justice, but also, crucially, profitable, stating if you expect a man to give his time and energy, fix his wages so that he will have no financial worries. It pays. Simple idea, massive implication.
Absolutely massive. The $5 a day was revolutionary, doubled the average factory wage overnight. Ford understood that well-paid workers weren't just more productive, they were potential customers for his cars, a virtuous cycle.
Makes sense.
However, it wasn't without its complexities or its problematic initial rollout. He initially tied these higher wages, the bonus part of it, to certain standards of cleanliness and citizenship.
Wait, what does that mean?
It meant he employed investigators, his sociological department. They literally went into employees' homes to check if they were living properly, not drinking too much, keeping the house clean, learning English if they were immigrants.
Wow. So giving with one hand but trying to control their lives with the other. How did that go down?
Not surprisingly, it caused resentment. It shows an evolution in his thinking, though. He later abandoned this intrusive approach. He explicitly states later, paternalism has no place in industry. Welfare work that consists in prying into employees' private concerns is out of date.
So he learned from it.
It seems so. It highlights that learning curve, moving from what he saw as incentivizing proper living to eventually recognizing the need for respect, privacy, self-reliance. Another example, perhaps, of his practical, results-driven side, adapting when something wasn't working or was counterproductive to morale.
And it wasn't just labor stuff. He had really unconventional views on organization, too, famously fighting against excess organization and consequent red tape. He claimed to have no organization, no specific duties attaching to any position, no line of succession or of authority, very few titles, and no conferences. Sounds like chaos by modern standards. How did anything get done?
It does sound chaotic, doesn't it? But his belief was the work and the work alone controls us. He saw traditional hierarchies, endless meetings as inherently inefficient, distracting. For Ford, you were paid for 8 hours work. You were expected to work during those 8 hours, not sit in meetings or navigate bureaucracy.
So empowering individuals just to do the job.
In a way, yes.
Yeah.
It's top-down vision, certainly, but with highly decentralized execution. Everyone knew the goal, just do the work. It's a radical thought for companies today, often drowning in meetings and middle management.
Okay, shifting gears a bit. Beyond the factory floor, Ford had equally strong, often contrarian opinions on national, even global issues, challenging the norms. He believed business is merely work. But speculation and things already produced, that is not business. It is just more or less respectable graft. Pretty strong words. He was incredibly critical of finance interfering with industry.
Yeah, this critique of finance is such a consistent thread. He firmly argued, money is only a tool in business, it's just a part of the machinery. He saw borrowing money just to cover mismanagement as sop for laziness and pride, believing that only heavier doses of brains and thought and wise courage can cure real business problems.
Then he backed that up.
He did. He famously put his money where his mouth was by taking over the struggling Detroit, Toledo, and Ironton Railway, bought it because it interfered with some of our improvements. He applied his industrial principles to it, focus on service, cut waste, improve efficiency, and demonstrated a railway could be run profitably without relying on financial speculation. A very practical demonstration of his anti-speculation stance.
He also had this unique take on the railroad problem itself, didn't he? Observing all the useless hauling, pointing to examples like, shipping Texas beef lived to Chicago to be killed, then shipping the meat back to Texas, or Kansas grain to Minnesota mills, then back as flour.
Exactly. He saw it as fundamentally inefficient. He advocated for radical decentralization, suggested grain should be ground to flour where it is grown, cotton mills ought to be near the cotton fields, make communities more self-sufficient, eliminate all that unnecessary transport waste.
It fits his theme, right? Efficiency, eliminating waste everywhere.
Absolutely, it permeates everything. His vision for addressing poverty, for instance, wasn't about personal economy thriftiness, basically. He called that waste. It is a waste of the juices of life, the sap of living. Instead, the solution was in better production, making things more efficiently, more abundantly. He even proposed this intriguing model of seasonal labor. Farmers working in factories off-season, factory workers helping on farms during harvest to reduce slack times, provide healthier living. A holistic view, if maybe a bit idealistic.
Okay. Now, we have to address a section of Ford's work that really clashes with many of the, progressive and service-oriented ideals we've discussed, a deeply problematic part of his worldview. In My Life and Work, he dedicated significant space to what he termed studies in the Jewish question.
Yes, and it's crucial not just to acknowledge this, but to understand the context and the very real harm of this material. Ford's writings here actively propagate harmful anti-Semitic tropes. He claimed to observe certain streams of influence which were causing a marked deterioration in our literature, amusements, and social conduct.
And he attributed these to?
He attributed them explicitly to one racial source and what he called a nasty Orientalism. He tried to frame his opposition as being against ideas, false ideas, which are sapping the moral stamina of the people.
Yeah.
And he believed the genius of the United States of America is Christian in the broadest sense.
Right. And we need to be crystal clear here.
Absolutely crystal clear. These are his claims, presented directly from the text. We're reporting them as such. We're absolutely not endorsing these widely condemned, dangerous, and historically destructive viewpoints. But to truly understand Ford, the whole picture, we cannot shy away from this stark contradiction. How could a man capable of such innovative, sometimes even human-centered industrial thinking simultaneously hold and actively promote such profoundly damaging prejudices?
It's a disturbing question.
It is. It forces us to look beyond just the achievements, beyond the Model T and the assembly line, and confront the full, often disturbing reality of his complex and deeply flawed legacy.
It certainly presents a jarring contrast. Shifting, though, to another aspect of his broader views, Ford also had very strong opinions on war, unequivocally stating war never settles anything. He called it a purely manufactured evil driven by a group of men with vast powers of control. He thought business should fundamentally be on the side of peace.
That fits his aversion to waste, doesn't it?
Mm.
War is the ultimate inefficiency, a massive manipulated drain on human and material resources.
And his views on education were equally practical, weren't they? He argued its object is not to fill a man's mind with facts. It is to teach him how to use his mind in thinking. He showcased his Henry Ford Trade School as a model for practical, self-sustaining training, boys learning by being trained on articles which were to be used.
Exactly. A direct extension of his industrial principles. Hands-on, practical learning, producing tangible results. That trade school wasn't just about teaching skills, it was about fostering independent thought and practical application. Students learned by actually making useful parts for the Ford Motor Company.
Making the school self-sustaining.
Right, proving the value of learning by doing. A powerful model for vocational training, again focused on utility and direct contribution.
And finally, his vision for healthcare. He applied his principles there too. Tell us about the Ford Hospital. That's fascinating.
The Ford Hospital was, a remarkable attempt to bring that industrial efficiency, that service over profit mentality to medicine. Designed to be self-supporting, to give a maximum of service at a minimum of cost, and without the slightest coloring of charity.
How did he do that?
Well, radical features for the time. Private rooms for everyone, no wards. Fixed pricing for services like $4.50 a day. Covered room, nursing, and medical attendance. $125 for a major operation. Fixed upfront costs. And, crucially, salary doctors. They had no financial interest whatsoever in any patient.
Removing the incentive for unnecessary procedures.
Precisely. Removing any financial motive that might conflict with patient care. He even aimed to eliminate what he saw as stifling professional etiquette that can hinder care. It was an ambitious, direct challenge to the traditional, often opaque, healthcare system. Again, focused on service, efficiency, and accessibility for the patient.
What an extraordinary journey through the mind of Henry Ford. I mean, from revolutionizing manufacturing, advocating for the dignity of labor in some really unique ways, to pushing for local economies, questioning the very nature of money. He truly saw the world differently, often progressively. Yet, as we've starkly seen, his work also contains these deeply troubling views, a stark reminder of the complexities, the profound contradictions within even the most innovative, influential minds.
Indeed. Ford's legacy is such a powerful example of that, isn't it? How one person's vision can reshape entire industries, societies,
Yeah.
sometimes for the profound better, sometimes in ways that are deeply flawed and, frankly, harmful. His insistence on service, efficiency, that practical, hands-on approach, it stands in fascinating, almost unbelievable contrast to some of his social and political theories. It really challenges all of us to look beyond the surface, doesn't it? To grapple with the full, often messy reality of historical figures rather than trying to fit them into neat boxes.
So what stands out most to you from this deep dive, thinking about our listeners? Perhaps it's his unwavering belief in that natural code of intelligent work, or his groundbreaking approach to the factory, the employee welfare, even with its initial flaws. Or perhaps it's the discomfort, the real necessity of encountering those darker corners of his thought and seeing how they coexisted with his genius. What this deep dive makes clear, I think, is that to truly be well-informed, we have to examine all aspects of the story, not just the convenient parts.
Exactly. And this leaves us with a truly provocative thought, I believe. How do we, as individuals, as a society, navigate these complex legacies, figures like Ford? How do we balance admiration for revolutionary contributions with a critical understanding and outright rejection of deeply problematic beliefs? What is our responsibility looking back to learn from the entirety of the past in all its complexity, all its contradiction to build a more just and perhaps even a more efficient future?